The scene then shows a group of soldiers camping in the wilderness. One of the soldiers wonders why monsters are appearing more and more often in this area, and hopes that the city will not be affected. They are the expedition party of Jude's father, Alex Bayer. Jude's father says that is the purpose of this expedition. They must kill as many monsters as possible before they return. Jude's brother then asks about what he is reading. Jude's father said that he was reading a letter sent by Victor. The letter was about Jude, who was now getting healthier, and it seemed that he was getting ready to learn martial arts. Jude's brother asked if his disease was cured. Jude's disease was not completely cured, but because of the necklace of the sun that he and Cordelia found, his condition was now getting better. Jude's brother was amazed to hear this and said that meeting Cordelia was the luckiest thing that had ever happened to Jude. Jude's brother wanted to finish this expedition quickly, but his father said that they couldn't push his subordinates too much just because he wanted to finish it quickly. Jude's brother is named Gale Bayer and is the heir to Count Bayer. The scene is then shown when Jude has met with Cordelia's father. There Jude is so nervous that it makes his body stiff. Arthur Chase along with Count Bayer, they were known as part of the 4 great powers of the North. Called the Crimson Strom, he is one of Sailrune Kingdom's top battle mages, the kingdom where Jude is. In Jude's main scenario, Cordelia's father has no reason to meet with Jude. Because of Jude's disease, which makes him growing weaker, they will slowly drift further apart, as well as Cordelia's disappearance due to the social gathering event. Their engagement was also broken off. Count Chase then said that he heard Jude had received the opportunity of a lifetime, the necklace of the sun. Jude said that he was just lucky to get it, and then showed it to him. Count Chase said that this relic was indeed extraordinary. He could feel the extraordinary energy radiating out just from holding it. He then said that the item he was going to give would be useless because Jude already had the necklace of the sun, but he would still give it. He also said that it was not much. Count Chase seemed to be a typical tsundere in-law. And when Jude opened the item, how surprised he was, because what was inside was Extreme Yang Pill, one of the ingredients that could cure his disease. Jude then thanked him. Count Chase then asked about Jude being carried by Cordelia when jumping off the cliff. He said that Jude was a weak bastard. He then gave a berry that could increase strength to Jude. Jude was surprised to see that because this fruit could not be obtained at the beginning of the game, but Count Chase gave it to him just like that. Jude wondered why Count Chase gave that much to him. Was he really that good, or maybe he really liked him? Previously Count Chase had also sent him a ring that Jude now always wore. The reason why Jude and Cordelia were engaged was because Count Bayer and Count Chase were old friends, and the two of them had promised a prenatal engagement. Because it's an engagement that was set up arranged without consent from the actual two involved. The two had an awkward relationship, but since they were nobles, they had to look like they had a good relationship in the eyes of others. That's why Count Chase sent him a couple ring, but suddenly Count Chase told him to throw away the ring. Jude was then surprised and asked why he had to throw it away. Count Chase said that Jude was the only one who wore the ring, while Cordelia said that she accidentally lost it. Count Chase also said that he would make a new one for the two of them. Jude was previously worried that Count Chase wanted to cancel the engagement between the two of them, but now Jude was sure. Count Chase was just the type of person who had difficulty expressing his true feelings. Count Chase then talked about Jude going with Cordelia to the social gathering. He was not sure Jude could survive with his weak body, therefore he gave Jude fruit that could increase his stamina. After thanking, Jude then said goodbye to leave. But when Jude had just left the room, he suddenly met Cordelia. Cordelia was surprised why Jude was here, and without telling her, Jude tried to calm her down, because he was suddenly called here so he couldn't tell her. Jude then invited Cordelia to take a walk in the garden. When they arrived at the garden, Jude then told her that Count Chase had given him many items. Count Chase said he had to get stronger so he could carry Cordelia. Cordelia was surprised why they were even talking about that. Jude said that the problem didn't seem to be that they were running away, but that Cordelia was carrying him. There Cordelia saw Jude's panda eyes starting to disappear, so his disease must be getting better. Jude then informed that his father Count Bayer would return in 10 days at the latest, so soon he would learn martial arts. Since Legend of Heroes 2 was released, there is a character that has always been ignored by players, with a very difficult start and a very bad physical condition. He is Jude Bayer. Just like other online games, in Legend of Heroes 2, there are noble characters that are popular among users, and there are also characters that are always ignored. Jude is a character that is only used by a few people even though he is on the tier list, while Cordelia is an unpopular character because it has a dark and gloomy scenario, and is difficult to play. The biggest reason people don't want to play using Jude is his character settings, which are very frustrating. The main obstacle in playing Jude is 9 Blocktian pathways, which can be treated naturally as the story progresses, and get a Fire Sun fish from Count Chase. The disease will be cured within 6 months, so in those 6 months the user Jude only does things that are not important. Jude is basically a minor side character who is handsome and sickly. Although later he will awaken the talent as the protagonist, treating 9 blocked-in pathways is just the beginning, because the user Jude cannot leave the territory before completing the mission Father's Test. The second reason that made Jude an unpopular character was the progress of his storyline to prove himself to Count Bayer that his disease was cured. This was the first mission that was very important in order to continue the main scenario, the mission known as Father's Fist. To complete the mission, the users had to train Jude according to the standards of Count Bayer, and because the standards were above average, Jude had to stay in the mansion for a month or 2 after recovery, and this mission certainly had no shortcuts, but because this was the real world, Jude didn't have to wait so long. And since he had the necklace of the sun, his condition now met the test standards. 1 week later, Cordelia was woken up by a servant. The servant then informed her that she had gotten a letter from Jude. Cordelia wondered what Jude had sent her a letter for this time. The letter was about Count Bayer, who would be returning from his expedition soon, but there was no exact date when they should meet, so Cordelia wondered if she should send him a reply. Delia then entered. She informed her that there was a message from Count Chase, Jude's father. Count Bayer would be returning today from his expedition, so Count Chase asked Delia to prepare their trip to the Bayer family residence to attend the meeting, 2 days later at night. At the Bayer family residence, Cordelia looked nervous there. They then discussed the matter of Jude and Cordelia finding the necklace of the sun. Jude's brother thanked her and said Jude had been blessed to have someone like her. Jude's father then asked Cordelia because he had heard from Jude that Cordelia had a request for him. Jude wanted to attend a social gathering that would be held with Cordelia. The social gathering was held in the city of commerce, Langest. They had no problem with Jude wanting to attend the social gathering, and Jude's brother even encouraged him to follow it, but Jude's father was still not convinced because Jude could not even hold a sword properly. The Bayer family prided themselves on their fighting strength, so Jude's father would only allow him to leave the area when he was strong enough, but Cordelia suddenly told him that she really wanted to go with Jude. Cordelia's father then assured him that the necklace of the sun was a relic that came from the sun god sect. It was once worn by Garius, the most famous paladin who served the sun god, so he couldn't possibly believe that they could get such a powerful item just like that. Jude's father finally relented, and would train Jude martial arts starting this afternoon. Jude was surprised that Count Bayer was teaching him personally. As this had never happened in the game, he wondered if this was a bonus gift. The scene was then shown when Jude and Cordelia were in the garden. Jude was grateful that Cordelia's father was so kind to him. He also did not expect his father to personally teach him directly. He had now mastered 36 world steps, so there was no way he would disappoint his father. Cordelia then told Jude not to push himself too hard. Jude told her that he was very similar to his father. Delia then called her because it was time for them to return. Cordelia then excused herself and said that she would bring all the items that Jude told her to bring, so he didn't have to worry. 4 days later in the morning, at the Bayer family residence, Jude and Cordelia felt sore after practicing for 4 days in their respective homes. But they could feel the progress after practicing for 4 days. Delia said that the preparation was complete. Their father and Jude's brother then told them to be careful on the road. They then left. While still on the way, Jude then explained his plan to Cordelia. He then asked if Cordelia had brought the items he asked for. Cordelia said that she had brought them, and showed the potion and towel that Jude told her to bring. Jude wanted to draw a magic circle at the bottom of the towel. Jude said that if everything went according to the flow in the game, they would be forced to take the long way. The next day, Delia was confused when she saw the closed road in front of her. June. The knight assigned by Count Bayer then said that the bridge collapsed and the road was closed after he asked the people who turned around, so their only choice now was to take a detour. Maya was worried because this was Jude's first time traveling far, but Delia told her not to worry because Cordelia had learned healing magic for him. Delia then planned to use the less steep mountain road, although they might be a day late, but this was the best option they could do. June then said that he would definitely do his best to keep them safe. Jude and Cordelia had expected this to happen because the plot was exactly like the one in the game. If they took the mountain route, they could trigger the hidden event that was there. Cordelia then asked about what Jude had eaten and the contents of the bag that Jude was carrying. Jude said that he ate the medicine that his father gave him, and this bag contained the money that Cordelia's father gave him. Cordelia was surprised to hear that, and asked Jude to divide it with her. But Jude refused and would only set aside a portion to buy her a delicious meal. And at night they then camped, and when everyone was asleep, Jude and Cordelia then quietly slipped away. They then looked for the valley where the event occurred, and soon they managed to find it. The hidden event that Cordelia Chase encounters on the detour route through the mountain path occurs at a very late hour, just like right now. When Cordelia sneaked out from the campsite, her first experience traveling rough roads made it difficult for her to sleep, and the pressure from having to meet with the heirs of 12 noble families, and the responsibility of being the daughter of the Chase family. For various reasons, Cordelia needed time alone to calm her mind and went to a small river to wash off her sweat. And what she met at the creek away from eyes of the other people was a moon so bright that the stars could not shine through. After seeing such a beautiful sight, Cordelia began to sing. The sound of the song slowly spread by the spooky creek, and a mysterious being appeared in front of her, who was summoned because of her voice, because of the fairy tale-like situation that Cordelia felt. It only looks like a fan service event, but not many people know that this event is the main event as a Cordelia user, because the reward from this event is a whopping. Therefore Jude convinced her to complete this event, because only she could do it, even though Cordelia was reluctant to complete this event, but she knew that they could not attend the social gathering without the reward from this event. Jude then calmed her down because he had brought a swimsuit with a magic circle. Cordelia finally agreed, but she said that Jude also had to wear a swimsuit. Jude was confused by the request. The scene is then shown when Maya wakes up from her sleep because she feels thirsty. She is surprised to see Jude, who is not in his bed. Back to Jude and Cordelia. Cordelia feels that they must suffer together. Therefore she has prepared a swimsuit for Jude. Jude is certainly reluctant about this, and promises that he will only hide in the bush and not come out. And after a long debate, Jude can only surrender and agree to Cordelia's request. But Cordelia then saw Jude's blue lips, and asked him if he was cold. Cordelia then undid her intention, and did not tell Jude to wear a swimsuit. She was worried that Jude would get sick. Jude was then told to turn around and hide in the bush, because Cordelia was about to change her clothes into a swimsuit. Jude was then fascinated by Cordelia's beauty, who was only wearing a swimsuit. Cordelia was angry with his gaze. Cordelia said that she was going to enter the water, and told Jude to hide properly. Cordelia felt cold after entering the water. She then remembered the song that Cordelia Chase sang at this event, but unfortunately she didn't remember it all except that it was about stars. So she then sang Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Jude was then surprised why Cordelia was singing that song instead of the song in the game. Even though the song was different, but the person singing was the same. Jude thought that maybe it didn't matter. After a while Jude saw two small glowing flying creatures coming towards Cordelia. They were fairies. One of the fairies said that Cordelia was very beautiful and asked her to continue singing. Cordelia was surprised when they actually came. Jude saw the same scene as in the game. So Cordelia's appearance mattered more than the song, because they were appearance enthusiasts. At this time everything was still as expected, and it was time for that guy to appear. If that guy appeared at the same point as in the story, they should have enough time to anticipate it. The fairies then took Cordelia to see their queen, because the queen of the fairies also liked beautiful people like them. But suddenly Jude came out from behind a bush and warned Cordelia to get out of the river, because Bicorn's hiding place was in the water. Cordelia was frightened when she saw Bicorn, who suddenly appeared behind her. Bicorn then used his telekinesis ability to prevent Cordelia from running away, and Bicorn planned to take Cordelia away. Cordelia knew that she could not escape Bicorn's telekinesis, so she hit her head against Bicorn. It was quite successful because Cordelia managed to escape into the water, seeing that Jude praised her prowess, because in addition to escaping from the Bicorn, she had also released her towel, which had a magic circle right above the Bicorn. Cordelia then took her stick under the water and activated the magic circle remotely using the magic missile. Jude then attacked the Bicorn's head using the necklace of the sun. Even so, because the Bicorn was a mid-level boss and the level difference was quite far, he would not lose that easily. Cordelia then attacked the Bicorn using fire missile. Cordelia's attack produced such a powerful impact that it made the river evaporate a little. But even so the Bicorn could still survive. Usually in this event they only need to chase the Bicorn away, but knowing the effect of the Bicorn's horn, they couldn't just let it go. Jude saw that the Bicorn seemed weakened. Cordelia then provoked the Bicorn to attack him. And when the distance between her and Bicorn was close enough, she then used binding magic. But because their level difference was too great, Cordelia couldn't bind it for too long. And because it used too much mana, causing Cordelia to be unable to stand up. But she managed to make a hole in the ground around her using dig magic. It was successful in making Bicorn fall down. The ability to control the battle by changing the battlefield is basic knowledge for magician. Cordelia's head was now in real pain because she was running out of mana, so she left the rest to Jude. Jude in the past 4 days had been personally trained by his father. Jude's father said that Jude's talent for martial arts is definitely one that's blessed by the heaven. But it was useless if his body could not withstand it. Before Jude went out to Langest, he would teach him 2 things, before he left in 3 days. The first thing was that he would teach Jude is the lightning punch, named like that because it has the ability to unleash 7 attacks in a single lightning strike. And the second thing, Jude may have difficulty learning this skill because his body has not been able to accommodate chi properly, and when preparing this skill Jude also cannot survive. But this skill will produce a powerful attack on enemies that are helpless or trapped. While remembering this, Jude then used the strongest skill that could be used with his current body condition, Lightning Strike Fist. Jude's attack successfully made Bicorn die. Cordelia was happy because she got so much XP that it made her go up 3 levels, but she then saw Jude, who was lying helpless. The fairies praised their greatness for defeating the Bicorn that had bothered them for a long time, so the fairies once again invited them to meet their queen. Cordelia then put the necklace of the sun on Jude's chest area. It succeeded in making his body warmer. Cordelia then used healing skills on him. Jude felt better, and said that he could continue moving after resting for a while. The 2 fairies then introduced themselves as Adel and Amel. Cordelia then introduced herself and Jude. Cordelia was now still wearing a swimsuit, so she changed first before meeting the queen. They were then escorted to the queen's place. They were surprised by how beautiful the scenery was there. The fairies who crossed between spaces, because they were only visible to a select few. For ordinary people, fairies only exist in fairy tales. For Jude and Cordelia, because they had seen fairies in the game, therefore they knew that fairies really existed, but if they appeared and disappeared as they pleased, it would be difficult to convince someone that they really existed. Their current situation was very rare, so Jude thought to take advantage of this opportunity. A few moments later, they finally met the Fairy Queen. Fall Fairy Queen Lorelei welcomed them both to the Autumn of Abundance, where they were currently. The scene was then shown at the campsite. They were all now sick in the head with the disappearance of Jude and Cordelia. Delia then suggested splitting up to look for them because she guessed that this escape had been planned. Delia then got angry with Cordelia because she felt that this time she had crossed the line. Back to Jude and Cordelia, they then saluted the Fairy Queen. The Fairy Queen appreciated their attitude. Jude then realized that Adel and Amel were no longer around them. The Queen said that Adel and Amel were already in the banquet hall. When the 2 of them entered here, Adel and Amel had told her everything between the time distortion between this world and the human world. Because fairies can easily switch dimensions, time is not a problem for them. Jude and Cordelia were amazed to hear this. The Queen then said that she had to give them a reward for killing Bicorn, who had caused problems long ago. Jude thought that everything was going according to plan. If there were no obstacles, all this would be an automatic event that he didn't need to intervene. Cordelia would drive away the Bicorn who was bothering the fairy. He was then invited to the night parade by the Fairy Queen. But now the original scenario changed, because this time Cordelia was not alone, but with him, and they didn't drive away the Bicorn but killed him. Jude was sure that there must be a change in the reward later. He was impatient about reward the fairy would give. But now what Jude needed most was moonlight. It was the original reward in the game. If he could get it, the other reward were not important. The Queen then thought for a moment about reward she would give. She then gave Cordelia moonlight, a magic wand that had been illuminated by the moon for hundreds of years. The Queen also gave an item called Fairy Footsteps to Jude. Jude was very surprised when he received the item. Fairy Footsteps is a rank A item that allows players to move to another dimension 3 times depending on the user's ability. In the game the instructions for use are not clear, but in the end the best way to use the item is to avoid any attacks by moving to another dimension when the attack will hit the body. Jude thought that if he had this item from the start, he wouldn't have to bother learning evasive movements. Jude didn't expect the Fairy Queen to give him this item. He retracted his words saying that he didn't need anything. Jude thanked the Queen, and Cordelia pouted when she saw that Jude got a better item than her. The Queen then said that there was a reason why she gave the reward. The main reason was that she preferred handsome men to beautiful women. They were then sent back to the river. Jude and Cordelia felt very tired because the fairies kept forcing them endlessly to play together. Because the time there was different from here, they said not to worry. But it felt too much because they had stayed for 12 hours there. Although here it was only a few seconds. They then saw Bicorn's corpse still floating in the river. Cordelia was now very happy because in addition to getting reward from the fairies, they would also get Bicorn's horn. But Jude then said that they were too tired now, so they needed help from the Guardian Knight to pull Bicorn's horn. Cordelia then realized that they were now in big trouble. The scene was then shown when Adel and Amel asked why the Queen gave them so many excessive rewards. The Queen then said that when she saw the 2 of them an image crossed her mind, something that happened in the future. She couldn't find out more details with just her power, but she was sure. The Queen then told the 2 of them not to worry, because they were both destined not to end up alone. The scene was then shown when Jude and Cordelia had returned to camp. There Cordelia was reprimanded by Delia for her reckless behavior. They had not checked the area here, and they did not know what would appear. But Cordelia was alone in the river without a guard. In 3 days they would reach Langest, so until they arrived at Langest, Delia then forbade them to get out of the carriage. Anyway, they would be locked up together in there. So Delia felt they would get the alone time they really wanted. The scene is then shown when Cordelia visits Jude, who is sick. Jude asks her if she has been angry. Cordelia agrees and says that the 2 of them are now prohibited from leaving the carriage for a while. Jude feels this is better. At least now there is no more reason to pull over before they arrive at Langest. Jude then says that Delia scolded him not out of anger but because she was worried about him. Even so, Cordelia is worried that Delia will start to hate him. Jude then took the initiative to invite Cordelia to apologize to her. If they apologized properly, Delia would definitely forgive them. Cordelia then took the initiative to wipe Jude's sweat. Cordelia said that she would take care of him for a while, so Jude could just sleep. Jude thanked her. 3 days later, Jude had now fully recovered. A guard then knocked on the window and asked them to look forward. They then saw Langest not far away, city of commerce Langest. This city was ruled by Duke Riesfelger, but in fact this city was ruled by the 12 northern clans simultaneously. This city was located in the northern part of the Sailrune Kingdom, and this city was not part of any family territory. This was also the starter city that started Jude and Cordelia's main scenario. They thought that this city really looked the same as in the game. Jude was then surprised that they would be living in a stately home, because in the original story Cordelia Chase lived in an ordinary inn. Maya then said that Count Chase was renting this villa. Even though the two of them were engaged, Count Chase ordered to separate their bedroom floors. Jude then saw Cordelia, who seemed to have made up with Delia. Jude told Maya that he was going out for a while. He then ordered all the guardian knights to follow him, including the knights under Count Chase besides Delia. Jude said that after they arrived at Langest and before the social gathering started, his father wanted Jude to borrow their powers for something. Jude lied here. The scene was then shown when Cordelia and Delia were walking. Delia then asked what items she wanted to buy. Cordelia said that there were actually no items she wanted to buy, but there was someone she had to meet here. She could only meet them at noon, so she couldn't delay this. Cordelia said she couldn't wait to meet them. 15 minutes before arriving in Langest, Jude and Cordelia had discussed the main event in Langest. The event would definitely be more difficult than the previous battle against Bicorn. Although their strength had increased, thanks to the reward items from the Fairy Queen, but still they couldn't win by relying on them alone. So Jude said he would sell his father and Cordelia's father, meaning he had written a fake official document that imitated Count Chase's writing. They would use this to gather magician in Langest. The document contains information about an attack by the enemy of the Sailrune Kingdom, the demon worshippers, during the social gathering of the sons and daughters of the 12 northern families, on behalf of Tower Master Arthur Chase. He begged the magicians of Crimson Dawn Tower to be able to help. As long as they had this document, the magicians of Crimson Dawn Tower had no choice but to help them. Cordelia was surprised by Jude, who could imitate her father's writing, as well as his style of speech and also his signature. Cordelia now understood that they would later sell her father, who was the Tower Master of Crimson Dawn, to get help from the magicians, because magicians were part of the elite class. Even if the daughter of the Tower Master begged for help directly, she still had to give them a reward, which Jude had already prepared. Cordelia then asked how she would sell his father. When Jude's father was on an expedition that time, he fought against demon worshippers, and when his father checked the bag belonging to one of the demon worshippers, Jude's father found a secret code type. After translating the code, Jude's father found out where the demon worshippers would gather next, and the meeting place was located somewhere in Langest. So Jude planned to bring a fake document with the news to the Langest Knights. With his father's reputation, if Jude visited them in person, the Knights would have no choice but to believe him. Of course, even if Jude used a fake document, all the locations written in the document were true, because he had already confirmed it in the game. So they will use NPCs to increase their strength. At the headquarters of the Blue Lion Knight Army, Barua, the commander of the Blue Lion Knights of the Sailrune Kingdom, was shown reading the document sent by Jude. The knights there were surprised that there were demon worshippers hiding in Langest. Jude then asked him to burn the document after he finished reading it, because Jude could not leave evidence of his forgery. Barua then confirmed the contents of the document given by Jude, and ordered the knights who were there to move towards the hiding place of the demon worshippers. Jude then asked himself and his guards to join them. Barua did not mind if his guards came, but he heard that Jude did not have a healthy body. Jude then convinced Barua so that he could participate in this attack. Barua then allowed Jude to join them. 30 minutes later, at the first branch of the demon's hand, one of his subordinates said that he found something. He found a document in a crate in the corner of the room. It seemed to be something important. Barua was then surprised because the document contained the location of other demons' hand meeting points in Langest, as well as important information about their important members. It must have been written by Jude in secret. They now knew 6 demon worshippers' meeting points. Barua then ordered them to return to headquarters to discuss strategy. They were then divided into 6 teams, with each team attacking one meeting point. A few hours later, Cordelia looked exhausted after traveling around looking for all the magician in Langest. She then saw Jude, who was like a corpse due to overexertion, beside her.